and you'll be live throughout the intro.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Conversations, Satsang with G. I did Conversations with G for 2 years, and I guess I still haven't broken the habit of saying that. But I did change it to Satsang with G, just to make sure that it conveyed the right spirit of this. You know, I was just speaking to a few folks here before the show started, and we have plenty of time during the week to take care of the things, all of the things we have to take care of, responsibilities and duties and all that, to carve out a period of time where we could just actually quietly contemplate the nature of our own being, the nature of truth, the nature of reality, without always attaching it to results, right? Because that's what happens. It's always about the results. And, the whole results-oriented thing has infected spirituality. I mean, it's in personal development. It's not about truth for truth's sake or discovering who you are, because what else is there worth doing rather than walking around acting like somebody you're actually not? But instead, well, what's it going to do? What's in it for me? What's it going to do for me? Well, if the subject of this week's show, I think, captures it perfectly. And in this week's show, before the questions start coming, is unconditional happiness. Everything we do, bar none, is to attain happiness. That's why we do it. I mean, there's nothing you do in your life that you do purposely to make yourself unhappy. A lot of things make you unhappy, but that's not what you were doing them for. You just, thought it was going to bring you happiness, and it didn't. And so if you look, you'll see every single thing we do, from the moment we get up to the moment we go to bed, even getting into bed and sleeping, is to be happy. And of course, we say, I slept well, which means I had good dreams and then fell into completely dreamless sleep, which is like the best, right? There's nothing there at all. When I say a term like that, unconditional happiness, people often get a bit incredulous. They can't fathom that such a thing is even possible. How do you have unconditional happiness? Well, you can't, as long as you believe the conventional wisdom, conventional wisdom of basically this and every culture on the planet, and that happiness lies in the things that you possess, the people that you possess, the objects you have, that happiness lies in fulfilling our desires, and that our life is and should be a constant pursuit of the fulfillment of desire. Even the pursuit of happiness is one of the cornerstone of the United States, where it's in the preamble to the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, right? The pursuit of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, right? So, but if happiness is out there somewhere, then it's not conditional. Right? And I'm just blowing smoke here, because if happiness is conditional, completely and totally conditional, then we're pretty much doing it the way it has to be done. And we're going to be, fighting and clawing to get our desires met, because that's what happiness is. That's how we see it. Of course, the problem with that is that most of the time we're not happy. Most of the time we're in the pursuit of happy. And the only time we feel happy is when we imagine ourselves having the object of our pursuit. But there's also another really, really interesting and significant phenomena about that doesn't get noticed very often. And that is that the happiness that we experience when we get something we want, and who can deny that it feels really great, right? It's really wonderful. But it never lasts. It's always short-lived, sometimes a little bit longer than others, sometimes very quick. Sometimes you barely get one thing and another desire arises. It seems like there's just this endless stream of desires that keeps us continually engaged. When did you? Oh, when did you start? I started at about 4 o'clock. For those of you who are listening on the radio, I am actually simulcasting on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. So every now and then you may hear me reading some comments. So don't don't be disturbed. You're not missing anything because you're listening on the radio. And Doug's going to give me the call-in number here. He's actually going to give me 2 numbers that I can read to you. One is for you to call in to speak to me, and the other is a call-in number that you can, for those of you on Facebook and YouTube who may want to listen on your phone if you can't be there the whole time. So 888-627-6008 is the number for you to call in to speak, and you can ask me questions and we can interact, which is like totally cool. You can go to 605-475-1600 and press 1, and then you can just listen. So I do encourage throughout the entire program to just call. That's the best. And let me scroll back here because Doug's going too fast for me to get all of these. 888-627-6008, and I'll take the call. So let me get back to this idea of happiness. Here's the secret about it. There's no happiness in the object you're seeking. That's a huge shock to people. It's not there. It never was. Has anybody ever met a happy dollar bill? Everybody ever met a happy car? The objects we pursue do not possess any of the qualities that we're pursuing them for. It's like light. People think, I've got on, this is a blue jacket, a gray shirt, black microphone. We got the green, bamboo. We've got the wood color in the background. I think that the bamboo is green. It's not. The color is an attribute of light, not of an object. It's all light. It's whatever happens to be reflected or in what it happens to be absorbed. We're like that. Every quality you're seeking in every object you seek is actually within you. And what happens is that magic moment when the desire is fulfilled, the desire isn't there anymore. And when the desire isn't there, the space just gets cleared and you feel the happiness that's in fact been there the whole time. It has been masked by the desires. Now, before people start going off on me, does that mean we should never have any desires? There's a lot of talk in spirituality about that. There's some very austere practices in spirituality. I hate to admit it, but I put myself through a bunch of those thinking that somehow that was the magic ingredient. You can no more stop desires from arising than you can stop the wind blowing or the surf from breaking on the shore. Life functions by desire. So how do we resolve this? Well, the answer is really very simple. It's not the desire, it's what you do with it when it arises and how you interpret it and what meaning you give to it. If a desire arises within us and we have a conditioned pattern, a way of thinking and a way of feeling that is constantly associated with lack, every desire arising is going to feel painful because there's going to be an environment there receiving it that says, I can't have it, or I shouldn't have it, or this isn't good to have, whatever it is, something to resist it. Now, if that wasn't there, the desire would simply arise. You would feel it, you'd recognize it, and then followed right behind it would be some kind of energy as to whether or not you were going to pursue it or not. And if there was nothing associated with it that said, if I get this, then I'll be happy, which is to say, not getting it, I'm not happy. You can't have, it's two sides to that coin. You cannot do one without the other. People say, gee, when I get that, it's really going to be great. What you are literally affirming is right now, it's not great. That is your mantra. That's what you're saying. And so the overall current of your thought and your behavior that's that is invested in that thought is that I'm not happy, right? And boy, it's so subtle and it's so simple. Happiness is inherent. That's what you feel when a desire is satisfied, where you let go of something. It's not really that important, and you truly let go of it. It's not just sour grapes saying, "Oh, it doesn't really matter." It's really, you really do. The desire just kind of fades away. What happens? There's this enormous sense of satisfaction, a sense of contentment. That's real happiness. That's the background noise. That's the om that's going on constantly in the background. That's your real being. I mean, let's face it. If in our existence wasn't innately happy, it would be the cruelest, harshest, most hellish thing that could ever possibly happen. Especially if you have some idea of an afterlife. I mean, if if I'm going to live in the hell of continual unrequited desire that I've associated with a sense of lack, put me out of my misery. Life cannot be that way. It simply can't. It's absurd to think. That is the idea that has become predominant within the culture. And as a result, it has really turned us into slaves. It's turned us into slaves. It's turned us into, consumers instead of citizens. I mean, really, consumer? I mean, it's like the hungry ghost, right? What a horrible image, You're not a person, you're a consumer. Oh my God, what a horrible thing. I know the conversation is going on about something. Got to leave it here for you to read later. My question eventually reached the stage where you totally and completely allow everything in life, the struggle, the chaos, the everything that's happening, the sadness, and you can see your old partners coming in patterns coming in waves. What's the secret? Do you allow those patterns to stay and allow everything? Yes. The bottom line is that there's a cultivated sense of allowing, but the cultivated sense of allowing can't be a resignation to it. It comes from a stronger place. And the stronger place that it comes from is that when you begin to practice allowing, and it's one of the key things that I teach at Master Heart Institute, when you start to practice that, at first it's very, very difficult because every pattern, every reaction, every thought, every feeling has got so much associated with it that immediately triggers all sorts of things into and reactions and meanings to you, right? So all of a sudden it happens and boom, you're all over it. The thing's reacting. But if you just begin the practice of settling back and just saying, okay, it's there. I'm going to let it be there. I'm going to drop all of my intention to get rid of it. I'm going to drop my agenda of how it should be different. I'm going to drop my ideas of how it should work out. And I'm going to actually turn my attention towards distress rather than away from it. Now, that will take some practice because you have been conditioned. We all have been conditioned to immediately recoil from any kind of inner discomfort. And of course, the entertainment industry is based on the fact that we want that to happen, that we have a million distractions. I'm sitting right here now, Facebook, YouTube, and Google, Skype. There are a million distractions to bring your attention away from what's uncomfortable in here. And we've all learned how to use them very well. And we're teaching our children how to use them very well. So if you just try, you could try it right now. Think of something that normally makes you uncomfortable and let yourself just be with it. Now, it's just a feeling, right? It's not going to kill you. Nothing untoward is going to happen to you if you're just putting your attention on it. It's just going to be there. But if your attention goes to it, what happens? There's a very different energy that begins to focus inside of ourselves when we begin to turn inside. And what I mean by turning inside, I mean simply being present and allowing of your own feelings without an agenda to change them, to just feel them for whatever they are, however they happen to feel. An enormous courage begins to evolve because you become less and less intimidated by your own feelings. You become less and less concerned about it. You stop purchasing the farm, right? And a beautiful presence ends up emerging. You suddenly get into this place that I call the peacemaker, where you stop taking sides inside. This feeling I like, I want more. This feeling I don't like, I want you to go away. Because the moment you take a side here, I want more of this, or I've got to be like this, I need to be this kind of a person, then any impulse to be anything else is going to be fought within you. But if that impulse is there, why don't you just allow it to be there and see what happens to it? This is what happens to our desires when they arise. They immediately run into this conditioning. You shouldn't have that. There's all sorts of guilt and shame that's associated with it. There's all sorts of a feeling of lack that you're not going to get it. You're not going to get what you want. You've never gotten what you want. Why is this time you're going to be any different? At a time like that, I just say, okay, that's going on. I can see that quite clearly. That is the pattern of meaning and response that I attach to that. So I'm going to just notice that too. I'm going to watch that too. Okay, well, there's the conditioned response happening. There it is. There's the whole picture right in front of me. There's a feeling comes up or a thought comes up. There's a cascade of thoughts after it. Usually they're negative. There's feelings of resistance. They can feel tension in the body. If you're just present with absolutely all of that, 100%, no resistance, you will be astounded at what happens. And the first thing you'll notice is you're still here. It didn't kill you. It didn't ruin your life. It didn't take anything from you at all. And you have stepped into a position of power. That is the ultimate position of power. And this is one of those spiritual paradoxes. The ultimate position of power is no position at all. The negotiator can't take sides. Has to be impartial. And when you're working on yourself, when you're looking at into your own heart, and you find all sorts of contradictions and polarities and stuff that's not all that pleasant and stuff that wants to get. I mean, the human being is not a single thing. The human being is not just this one thing. We are made up of many parts. The energy body that makes up the character and persona of a human being is made up of, is like your body. Your body is made up of a bunch of different organs. Each one of those organs functions independently of the rest, but they pretty much all need to be there. And if they're all doing their job, it's a harmonious whole. If they're not, some you can get along better without than others, but eventually the entire thing comes to a crashing halt. But there's all sorts of aspects to you. There's a part of you that wants, the easiest model I love to use is there's a part of you that wants safety at all costs. That's all it wants. It doesn't care about anything else. It doesn't care about happiness and joy and fun and romance and, success, safety. That's all it wants. We all have that in us, and it's very good that we do, because that's how we survive. But there's also within us another energy that really wants freedom. It wants to feel free. It feels pent up. It's that part that moves us to seek spiritual insight, to do personal development work. It's that gets us to grow. Without that, we'd be an ant. There'd be no inner conflict, right? You'd have no issues, right? Why you couldn't have any issues because you're because there's no conflict. There's nothing inside conflict. You're just programmed the way you're programmed, like your dog. You train them, they do exactly what you tell them to do. They get the reward. Life is good. They don't have anything inside them that says, "I want to be free." And then notice that there's something even more subtle, something even more essential that is watching all of this. That which took the side, and most people on the spiritual path, they're taking the side of freedom, and therefore they have characterized safety and resistance as these negative energies that have to be gotten rid of. But that's only because you've taken a side. If you recognize that that part of you is absolutely essential too, and so now you've got two very essential parts of you that are in direct contradiction to each other, and if you don't give preference to either one of them, you sit in the position of the peacemaker. You can find a resolution now, whereas if you're taking sides, you can't. I mean, this is the way we do with wars, right? The way we resolve a problem is we beat each other up till somebody dies. Then the other side wins, and they write the history books, and it all seems very glorious. That's not a reconciliation. That's not a resolution, right? But that's the way the world works. But that's what we do. And a lot of self-help techniques, that's what they have you do. They want you to visualize so hard, and eventually you're going to quiet all those negative emotions. Well, they're only negative because you've taken a position that's made them negative. It's that simple. They've just been getting bad press. There's no such thing as a negative emotion. There's no such thing as a negative feeling. There's no such thing as a negative energy. They don't exist. Those are all interpretations of the conditioning of the mind. And when that's understood, you are free. You are free to step into this other place, this beautiful place where it's quiet, where it's harmonious, where it's content, where the inevitable conflicts that arise between the competing parts of you don't create any disturbance in the force. And that is the real, permanent, eternal happiness that I keep wanting to refer you back to. That's the happiness that isn't conditional. Because when you drop the position, you've dropped the conditions for happiness. If there's something I really want and I feel an inner resistance to it, and I just fight with the resistance, which is of course a waste of time because it's always going to win. But when you fight with it, you have made your happiness conditional on this thing going away. You're literally creating a war within yourself. We do it all the time. But if you don't do that, instead you pull back into the position of the completely benevolent witness, the benevolent negotiator. You begin a process of what I call inner reconciliation. So to simply allow the feelings to be there, if you purely allow, it'll work. It'll have exactly the same effect. But what happens is that on a very subtle level, for most people, when they say, "Oh, I have to allow," they talk a lot about allowing in the law of attraction. They say, "I have to allow this." Okay, I'm going to allow it now. I'm allowing. I mean, what they're really saying is, I'm going to adopt the posture of allowing in hopes that it goes away. The undercurrent, the underlying intention isn't allowing at all. It's just trying to apply allowing as another technique to make this thing be quiet and go away. Allowing is really allowing. It is a total surrender. It is, you have my total permission to be here for as long as you want. I don't care how harsh the feeling is, how difficult it is. You simply say yes to it. And you'll know you've really said yes to it if I can ask you the question, could you be with this feeling for the rest of your life? And you answer yes. Then you're allowing. So producer on the radio show said it appears that there was some kind of a problem with the connection. I'm still connected to him on Skype, though. So I don't know if the phone lines are working. I will give the number, though, to call in. He may have gotten it going. 888-627-6008. Hopefully the boys in California who are broadcasting this thing will get all the connections together. So connection going out. Faulty breaking wires. That was a while ago. Oh, it's only 5 seconds. All lines are working. Sorry, I have to reach over and scroll. Sorry, Doug. So at any rate, let me check the chats here. Okay. Oh, here's a beautiful one. But GP, it feels like going to that depth will kill me. This talk is so on point. How I'm feeling now. Okay. Okay. Lit L minus V, I think is the name she goes by. That belief, that it feels like it's going to kill me, is a thought about the feeling. This is such a beautiful exercise to do, folks. You can try it anytime you like. Go to some feeling that's particularly difficult and you think this is just going to kill me, and see if the feeling is saying this is going to kill me, or if your mind is. See, your mind has created a story about this feeling in order to keep it at bay. It's one of the ways in which it resists it and tries to keep it suppressed. And so when you say, I'm going to turn towards it, your mind's going to say, no, you're not. That's ridiculous. It's going to kill you. It's going to ruin everything. Your life is going to be destroyed. It's going to go on and on and on, because what you've just done is you've kicked a tripwire. The tripwire being one of the many defense mechanisms in the nervous system that have built up to keep these feelings at bay. Now, it's a very natural, it's not an insane process, it's a very natural process, because when most of these patterns got put into place, where something was really, really felt horrible and you had to pull away from it, you were still very young. You didn't have the emotional capacity to feel it, to be with it. You simply didn't have it. And so you had to be able to suppress it, especially if your caregivers were the ones causing the distress, because now this feeling is being caused by the people who are supposed to take care of you. This sends shockwaves throughout the nervous system. And so this feeling becomes dangerous. Lots of our feelings become dangerous because they're not acceptable to our tribe when we're growing up. And so, you know, we're too little to do anything about it. We're totally vulnerable and powerless. The only thing we can do is suppress that energy and bring it back into ourselves. As we get older, though, and the sense of identity develops, it takes on the character and eventually the job of the parents in keeping that suppressed. So the mechanism is still in place. But there comes a point in somebody's spiritual and emotional development where you develop the maturity to turn towards it instead of away from it, realizing that, wait a minute, this is just a feeling. This is a programmed response. My mind saying don't go there is just one of the tools my mind used to keep me from going there. Because at the time I did need to not go there, but I don't have to not go there now. It's me. It's going to kill me. It is me. How is me going to kill me? Right? I mean, yes, it may be painful. You may end up feeling something that you didn't want to feel a long time ago. But I have found ways in which to approach this with such gentleness and such openness that you don't have to relive the trauma. You don't have to process it as an abreaction. The deeper you get into allowing, the more the system can discharge these traumas without having to relive them. And that's That's a fact. I did Gestalt work back in the late 80s and 90s and the like. And it was at that time, it was Primal Scream. That was a little later. Primal Scream was a little earlier than that. That was like in the 70s and the like. But that was what it was. The whole idea was to get into a state where you actually relive the trauma. And I went through some of those where the the cure for the trauma created more trauma than the trauma did. I mean, it was just horrific. And so one of the things I've done over the years is found all sorts of different ways in which to discharge the traumatized energy without reliving it, so that the system can just naturally discharge it, because it knows how to do that. I mean, you're living in a very sophisticated machine, a very sophisticated, intelligent machine, but it is a programmable machine. It's not really who you are. You are way more than this body. The functioning of the body is something that can come to be understood. And as we do, what emerges is happiness, a sense of contentment, a sense that, oh, there isn't any threat to me. There isn't any, these feelings aren't going to kill me. As a matter of fact, you find that when you just allow them to be there, they come and go very quickly. Rarely do they hang around. Rarely do they stay. Even the deepest grief can be processed in a very short period of time because there's no resistance to it. Now, people think, oh, I've got to get rid of my grief. No, you don't have to get rid of feelings. You don't have to get rid of painful feelings. Feeling of grief or loss or broken heart, you don't get rid of them. But if you think you do, you make up a story about them, you try to suppress them in some way, you try to make yourself get over it, all you're doing is stopping the system from doing what it already knows how to do, and that's discharge traumatic energy. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it will not be fun, but it is natural. I mean, I've known people that have, holding on to grief for years. And what it really means is they've been resisting feeling the grief for all these years, hoping it's just going to go away, rather than just doing it, rather than just feeling it. I often tell this story about, let me see if there's any other questions there. How is me going to kill me? That is so true. Thank you, thank you, thank you. When I and mind are gone, what remains in this? Wow. When I and mind are gone, what remains? The real I and the purely functioning mind. I mean, the I that you're talking about, okay, you can't go away, okay? The only thing can go away is what's not you. You're here for the duration, right? That's the nature of consciousness. The problem is that we have created an image of ourselves. That image of ourselves we have mistaken for who we are, and we believe that thought of us is actually us, which is the equivalent of looking at the Great Wall of China on YouTube and thinking you're visiting China, right? It's an image in the mind, and yet we've identified with it so strongly, we actually think that's who we are. So in spirituality, especially in non-dual spirituality, when they talk about transcending the I, they're not talking about you, they're talking about the false sense of you, the beliefs you're holding about yourself. And the essence of every single false belief you have, the thing that holds them all in place, is that sense of identity that isn't really you. But the real you is never gone, right? What remains? What's hearing my voice right now? If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, what's seeing this picture right now? What's feeling the chair? What's feeling your sensations? What's experiencing the emotions? What's experiencing the thoughts? You notice there's something that is aware of all of it. That is what is, no, that is the only thing qualified to be called I. That's the I. It's the I that hears everything, knows everything. I'm sitting here speaking, I'm in Astoria, New York. I'm speaking into this microphone and these wires, right? The microphone's not hearing my voice. The wire that's carrying it isn't hearing my voice. The internet that's transporting it all over the place, over to Facebook and YouTube and their servers, and going all over the place. The speakers that you're listening to me on, they're not hearing my voice. The ear that is converting the vibrations in the air into electrical impulse going to the brain, that's not hearing my voice. The brain, which is making associations and putting up thoughts and everything about it, that's not hearing my voice. You are. That's you. The reason spirituality seems to be so obscure and arcane and difficult is because you are not an object that can be perceived. The body is, thoughts are, feelings are, but you're not. You are pure consciousness. You are the spirit that animates the body, which means you have no form. What's the shape of water? Whatever you put it in. What's the shape of you? Whatever you put you in. That's why we identify so much with the form and with the body, and when we go on the spiritual quest to awaken or to find out who we are, we keep thinking that somehow we're going to get the best, most perfect thought of ourselves. But you're the one doing the seeking. You're the one feeling the feelings. You're the one hearing the thoughts. What else is the I am? What else is you? What else could be you? In the process of inquiry, direct path, and a variety of others, and actually in some of the Christian traditions, some of the mystical traditions, there was a practice called via negativa, and in Hindu they have a saying, neither this nor that, nor both, nor neither. And it is a process of simply removing everything that isn't you, that can't be you. And you just keep going until there's nothing left, until you cannot remove anything else. And you'll find that anything that you can perceive, and I'm talking about gross perceptions like, cars and objects and people and stuff like this, pictures on a screen, and more subtle perceptions as well, like sensations and emotions and thoughts, which are very intimate, very close, and very subtle, but are still being perceived by something. Now, if I am perceiving it, I must be standing apart from it and looking at it. So whatever I perceive, however subtle, however close, cannot be me. It is such a powerful spiritual practice, because you'll find in short order that everything you were thinking of as you was actually just a thought, an object, an image, a picture, an association, a memory, all of which are being perceived by you. What do you look like from a distance of 0? If I tell you to picture yourself, you'll most assuredly have a picture of in your head of you standing, 5 feet away, maybe from the waist up, maybe a full body shot, or maybe look in the mirror when you're shaving or putting on your makeup or something. That's the picture of myself. But you've never actually seen that picture of yourself. You have never been able to step outside of yourself, look back, and look at you. You've seen reflections, you've seen videos, you've heard recordings, all sorts of stuff like that. But you have never, ever seen yourself directly. And yet when I say, picture yourself, that's what you picture. Something you've never seen. Well, what have you seen? What do you know? Just the feeling of being. It's unmistakable. Can you get rid of that? Can you separate yourself from that? Can you dispose of that I? You don't even need the word I. Your name, you can throw that out, right? That wasn't original equipment. Every idea you have about yourself can be set aside. What remains is you. the real you. Now, it's only difficult because of our habit of trying to put an object into our minds that is ourself. That's the way the mind works. The mind is nothing but a manipulator of objects. That's all it does, is associate, compare, describe, contrast, remember. That's all it does. It cannot deal with something that isn't an object. You're not an object. So your mind cannot know you. That which is knowing the mind, though, you know very well. You're more than intimate. Intimate implies even a distance. You are one. You are just that. Let's check my time here. I actually have to be a good boy with the time now that I'm on a radio show that's actually got a schedule and the like. Kelly. Hey, Kelly weighed in. Stuck always means holding on. Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely. Look, a thought cannot hold on to you, can it? I mean, they don't have little arms, you know, or little pieces of Velcro, you know, and feelings. They can't hold you. They're not sentient beings that can grab you and you know, hide in the bushes and when you jump on, gotcha now, right? So if they can't hold you, then how is it that they stick around? Well, you're holding them. But it gets very, very subtle because we don't realize we're holding it, because what's holding them is the image that we have of ourselves, that sense of who I think I am. That self-image is the glue that makes them stick. Without that, you have no Velcro on you. Every thought just comes and goes. Every feeling just comes and goes. Right? Desires come and go. They arise, they go away. They arise, they may fulfill themselves, right? You leave it to life, which finally, getting back to my original theme here of unconditional happiness, right? And one of the keys to the whole mystery in spirituality about, you know, overcoming, transcending desire. It doesn't need to be gotten rid of. You simply need to see where your true position is, right? When you see desires as just another thing that come and go and not you, and there's not a sense of identity that globs onto them and thinks that they're going to deliver something wonderful or something horrible, trying to get something to make yourself happy, get rid of something to make yourself happy. And instead, you see yourself as being that beautiful, spacious, open background in which it is all appearing and disappearing. And none of it is essentially what you are. You live in perpetual, unconditional happiness. And that's the key. Happiness is your natural state. If you're not feeling happy, it's because you have attached your happiness to something. Period. When you're not feeling that, just look. You'll find some place where you've attached it. Some of these attachments run very, very deep, and they can take a while to root them out and let go of them. But the more we're allowing, and you know, there's another aspect of it too, and that's just trust. I mean, you could even use the word faith. A sense of insight into who you really are is okay. That you recognize that there was something here before any of this conditioning happened, before the programmed responses started, you know, before you ran into obstacles and or came into an environment that was hostile or threatening. You were there first, before any of this happened. Every thought that comes, you're there before it comes. You watch it come. You're there when it goes. So you're obviously way more than any thought or any feeling. The experiencer of the thoughts and feelings is way more than any particular feeling. Right, so just a reminder, 888-627-6008 to call in and speak. So the real I am is the total consciousness, otherwise would be dual. Wow, great questions. Is the false sense of you the ego? The ego is another word for it. Yes. When we begin to inhabit it, ego needs to be understood. It is simply the idea you have of yourself. Okay, that's all it is. It's been turned into the modern devil, right? It's this horrible thing. I just overcome. I could just get rid of my ego. I mean, it's like the people on the spiritual path. It becomes this horrific demon that they're fighting all the time. The word ego originated in the Greek, and all it means is I. It was the Greek word for I. That's all it means, the sense of I. It got kind of turned into our modern definition of it by Freud, who turned it into this thing. And then, some spirituality and self-help and psychology kind of turned it into this, this thing that it's become today. It's not a big deal, right? Yes, the ego is just another word for the sense of self that isn't you, for the image of you rather than the real you, the picture you hold of yourself, the sum total of the beliefs that you have about yourself. You could call the ego. So now moving on to this next one here. So the real I am is the total consciousness of, otherwise would be dual. I'm not quite sure I understand the last part of that, but yes. And I don't want you to take this as a thought, right? I don't teach thoughts. I try not to teach at all. I try to just kind of point people in a direction so you can look and see for yourself, right? I mean, you can see you're the one, something is hearing my words. We may not know what it is, right? So if I say it's consciousness or it's God or it's the absolute, it's the I am, I've just put some more words on it. I want you to instead go directly into your experience of it. You are experiencing being. You're experiencing sensations and thoughts and ideas and stuff happening. A lot of stuff going on, right? You are experiencing. Whatever that is that it's experiencing, that must be you. Now, if you can explore that without referring to any object, because we've already determined that objects are perceived, without referencing any thought or feeling, because those are all being experienced, and try to experience the experiencer directly, you will confirm what I'm saying is true. And then you can use a word like pure consciousness or the absolute or the great I am. Because how else could you give expression to something that's absolutely formless, and yet it is, which also means it's boundless. It occupies all space and time. Matter of fact, it creates space and time. And in that, even the duality disappears. There is no duality. It is simply consciousness aware of itself. So, but do this yourself. It's most remarkable exploration. We just don't do these kinds of things. We're so busy and distracted. There's so many things going on. So much is taking our attention, and the phone's ringing, and I got another text. That we don't ever just kind of stop for a second and put our attention on the experiencer. We're so absorbed, mesmerized really, by the experience that we never put our attention on the experiencer. We just assume what we've been taught and told, the hearsay about who we are. We just assume that must be what it is. Oh, here's another question. This looks good. Sometimes I feel like my vibration is lower and I'm not as in tune with the universe. I had a cathartic moment recently where I was completely in tune with everything and felt vindicated, liberated, beautiful, felt innocent. Yes, that's the natural feeling of happiness. Now, what's going to happen? And everybody's had this experience, okay? Everybody's had this experience, right? People have an awakening experience, an enlightenment experience, a feeling of oneness, right? Suddenly you just you're just gone. It's just this utter bliss, utter joy, and you get it. You feel it, and it's so real. You go, okay, I can't possibly lose this, and then it fades, right? It didn't actually fade. What you are feeling is what you're really like. But just because you have an experience that is free of all content, free of all the conditioning, you're basically, the conditioning was quiet for a moment, doesn't mean it's gone. It's still very active in the nervous system. And it's going to come back again. And when it does, that your spiritual story about your sadhana and your spiritual practice is going to come back and say, oh God, I experienced it, I was so close, now I've lost it, I got to do more work. That's all a story. You didn't lose it. That's you. That's really you. Don't doubt the experience. Don't doubt that. But go into it even more deeply, because no matter how blissful it was, you were still there perceiving it. Even the bliss, the happiness, the oneness, the vindication and innocence was being perceived. You're even more subtle than that. And from this place, you can begin to very gently allow the energy system to react, allow the ego to speak, allow this stuff to come up. And if you recognize that that has to happen, I am not my body, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions, these things are going to come up, it is inevitable, then you can be incredibly patient and kind and gentle with yourself. And as it comes up, you recognize it and you give it the space to be. You give it the space to resolve itself. You give it space to just kind of, to let go of itself. I mean, the thing that put all of these patterns in place that resist our growth were put there because of a genuine threat to the system. The system adopted a posture because it felt threatened by the environment. In a lot of cases, in every case, there was real danger there. Some cases really extreme, some cases not as extreme. But the nervous system doesn't do anything without a reason, right? So there was a reason why it did that. Something really did happen, and it's just been kind of stuck in that position. But you now, having an insight like that, have stepped into a completely different world, right? Don't doubt that. That's the truth. Right? Now turn your attention back from there and say, not, oh, I lost it, but, oh, there it is again. How can you lose yourself? You're still the same one. That which was perceiving the moment of bliss where the Red Sea was parting, and that which is perceiving resistance and all sorts of turmoil in the nervous system, it's the same you. Let the sense of I return there. Let that go home to the Father. Let that go home to the self. The sense of I. Who you are is who you are. It can never change. The thought of I can either look towards the identification with the form and the world and everything going on in the nervous system and the body, or it can turn and identify with the infinite. Nisargadatta called the sense of I, the sense of beingness, a door. In one direction, it swings outward to all of the manifest world. In the other direction, it swings inward to infinity. You're the I that is simply aware of all of that. And you'll begin to sink into that more if you don't buy the story that somehow you lost it, that you now had an experience. You didn't have, you are not what was experienced. You are the one that had the experience. Okay, I got 4 minutes. No calls this time. Derek Mann said, great stuff. Ego, Earth Guide only. Thank you, Kelly. You don't really need the ego. The mind's useful. You need the mind. That's really useful. But the ego is just a thought. Just a thought. Let me scroll through here, make sure I got all of the questions people wanted to ask. Somebody asked, is this on for an hour and is it every Sunday? And the answer is yes. Yes, it is. I'll be doing this every Sunday at the same time for an hour, which is short for me because I'm used to going like 2 and 3 hours. But radio format, we're doing it the way the radio wants. Okay, non-duality says there's no one here. Oh, I'm glad I got this one. This is a great one too. Right. Oh, thank you for saying that. Thank you for bringing that up. That is nonsense. I call that the neo-Advaita weenies. That is the mind attempting to assimilate and imitate genuine non-dual inquiry. There's no person in the nervous system. The thought of a person is not the person, but you can't say there's no one here. The image of myself is not myself. It's not like a thought is not a thing that thinks and feels. It's not sentient. It's not doing anything to me. So even a bunch of thoughts I have about myself are not a real being, right? I'm the real being that animates them. If I believe in them, they become alive because I believe in them. I'm the animator. I'm the Walt Disney of this cartoon, right? But there's very much someone here. There is one someone here. And you can verify it for yourself. Are you not hearing my words? So obviously there is someone here. The question isn't whether there's someone here or not. The question is, who are you? Because you are self-evidently here. Some of you who may not be familiar with non-duality, it's this kind of examination where you basically turn your attention completely towards that which is completely self-verifiable, starting with the most basic, which is I am, and I'm aware of it. And then you can begin to question all the beliefs you have about yourself. Because whatever that is, that's yourself. I mean, you may be dreaming, you may be on ayahuasca, you may be having hallucinations, you may be absolutely crazy. Everything you're seeing may not really exist anywhere ever. It could be the Matrix. All of that's fine, right? Who cares? You're obviously here experiencing it. Whatever that is, that has to be you. If you're on the spiritual journey, the journey of wanting to truly realize the self, who you are, that's where to look, because that's where you are. Again, one of my favorite quotes from St. Francis of Assisi, and I'll close on this one. He said, what you are looking for is where you are looking from. And that includes happiness. So we're coming up on the time here, folks. The music's going to be cued here any second. I want to thank you all for joining me. Come by next week. If you go to gpwalsh.com/satsang, you can register, and I'll send you notices and reminders that it's happening. And let's see. Doug, you there? Oh, Doug. Oh, 1 minute. I'm on a different time. I still have 1 minute, so check. So anyway, there we go. By all means, please sign up and send notices. Hello, everyone. This is GP Walsh, and I want to invite you to my new... And there's me again with my commercial stuff. So anyway, thank you all. I love you all, and we'll see you next week.
Sorry, I just have a lot of noise happening here in the background, and I couldn't hear that from you. And usually, whenever there's I don't know if you know this, but I'll sometimes give you time to go over if I know the next show is going to be like a delivered show, or it's only going to take me a minute